The Daniel Patrick Moynihan Prize was established in 2008 by the American Academy of Political and Social Science to recognize public officials and scholars who make major contributions to public policy. Alice Rivlin was the perfect first recipient of the Moynihan Prize because, like Senator Moynihan, her career included a combination of scholarship and public service. Congress literally did not know what it was doing until Alice Rivlin became the first head of the newly formed Congressional Budget Office in 1975. Before that, Congress used to legislate with only the wildest of guesses about how much things cost. Alice Rivlin changed all that by issuing the official cost estimates for legislation that Congress was then required to use. Her first government position was as an assistant secretary in President Johnson's Department of Health, Education, and Welfare. She served in President Clinton's cabinet as the director of the Office of Management and Budget. She later served on the Federal Reserve. Between government positions, Alice Rivlin repeatedly returned to the Brookings Institution, where she contributed to policy papers and always instructive op-ed pieces. She once told the New York Times, "I'm a writer who sometimes serves in government rather than a government worker who sometimes writes." I saw the awe with which Senator Moynihan himself, a world-renowned scholar and former Harvard professor, always regarded Alice Rivlin when she testified to his committee or conferred with him privately in his office. That awe was shared by most members of Congress on both sides of the aisle in those days, who always wanted to know the same thing. What does Alice think? The Brookings Institution announced that Alice Rivlin passed away today. Alice Rivlin was 88 years old. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on the button below for more from The Last Word and the rest of MSNBC.